In the vast echoing chambers of the Hall of Convergence, where the stars themselves seemed to whisper secrets through the translucent domes overhead, Sergeant Marcus Webb stood sentinel. The station orbited the neutral planet of Elizara, a jewel suspended between the warring frontiers of humanity and the Kyrith Empire. For months, the peace negotiations had dragged on like a dying comet's tail-endless debates, fragile alliances, and the ever-present hum of tension that vibrated through the air like an unspoken threat. Marcus, a veteran of the border wars, had seen his share of carnage. His body bore the marks, a jagged scar across his left arm from a plasma blast on Rigel 4, a faint burn on his neck from a close encounter with a Kyrith Enforcer's blade. At 35, his once boyish face had hardened into lines of quiet resolve, his dark hair cropped short, his blue eyes sharp with the vigilance of a man who had learned to trust no one but his instincts. The hall was a marvel of interstellar architecture, its corridors lined with iridescent panels that shifted colors with the mood of the occupants, or so the engineers claimed. Delegates from both sides mingled uneasily, humans in their crisp uniforms of navy blue and silver, Kyrith in flowing robes of deep crimson and gold, their lithe forms moving with an otherworldly grace. The Kyrith were humanoid, yet ethereal, taller than most humans, with skin that shimmered like polished amethyst under the artificial lights, eyes that glowed faintly with bioluminescent hues, and features sculpted as if by the gods of ancient myths. But beneath that beauty lay a culture obsessed with perfection, where any flaw was a curse, a sign of divine disfavor. Marcus's shift was nearing its end, the holographic clock on his wrist ticking down the minutes. He leaned against a pillar, scanning the room out of habit. That's when he noticed her Princess Lyara of the Kyrith royal house. She stood apart from the throng, her posture regal yet isolated, as if an invisible barrier repelled those around her. Her robes cascaded like liquid starlight, but it was her face that drew whispers and averted gazes. 3 precise scars marred her left cheek, running from temple to jawline, healed but unmistakable. In Kyrith society, such marks were a brand of dishonor, a declaration that she had failed in her duty to remain unblemished. Rumors swirled, an accident, a betrayal, a punishment. Whatever the truth, she was a pariah among her own, and the humans, ever cautious, kept their distance. Yet, as Marcus watched, their eyes met across the crowded hall. Hers were a piercing violet, swirling with depths that seemed to pull at his soul. There was no fear in them, only a quiet defiance. He held her gaze, not with pity or revulsion, but with the neutral assessment of a soldier who had seen far worse. A faint smile tugged at his lips, unintended, but genuine. She tilted her head slightly, as if intrigued, and began to weave through the crowd toward him. The delegates parted like waves before a storm, their murmurs growing. She stopped mere feet away, her presence commanding yet vulnerable. Up close, her beauty was undeniable. High cheekbones, full lips that curved with subtle elegance, and hair like woven midnight silk cascading down her back. The scars, thin and silvered, only added to her allure in Marcus's eyes, like battle honors etched into porcelain. "Human," she said, her voice a melodic cadence that resonated with an accent like distant chimes. "I must ask you a question of the mirror. It is our custom, though rarely invoked with outsiders." Marcus straightened, intrigued despite himself. "Ask away, Your Highness. I'm just a guard here, no diplomat to worry about protocols." She hesitated, her violet eyes searching his face for deceit. Then, with a breath that seemed to carry the weight of empires, she spoke. "Am I too ugly for you, human?" The words hung in the air, absurd and profound. Ugly? Marcus had witnessed horrors that would shatter minds. Comrades torn apart by orbital strikes, civilians scarred beyond recognition by chemical agents on the frontier worlds. 3 clean scars on a face like hers, it was laughable. A genuine burst of laughter escaped him, deep and unrestrained, echoing off the chamber walls. Heads turned, but he couldn't stop. It wasn't mockery, it was the sheer ridiculousness of it, the contrast between her ethereal grace and the self-doubt in her voice. Liara's eyes widened, a flicker of shock crossing her features. In Kyrith culture, the question of mirror was sacred, demanding unfiltered truth from the respondent. Laughter was rare, often seen as insult. But Marcus, wiping a tear from his eye, composed himself. "Ugly? Princess, if those scars are what you're worried about, you've got it all wrong. They make you look like a warrior, like someone who's been in the thick of it and come out stronger. I've seen men and women with half their faces melted off, limbs replaced with cold metal. 3 little cuts? That's nothing. Hell, it adds character. Your bone structure, your eyes, they're stunning. If anything, those scars tell a story of courage, not ugliness." Her expression shifted from surprise to something deeper, a warmth that bloomed in her gaze. Unbeknownst to Marcus, his honest response had invoked an ancient rite, the bond of truth. In the annals of Kyrith lore, when a royal posed the mirror question and received a response free of flattery or fear, a metaphysical link formed, binding the truth speaker to the royal as a consort or guardian. It was rare, almost mythical, for royals were surrounded by sycophants who saw only what they wished to project. Liara stepped closer, her hand brushing his arm, a touch that sent an unexpected spark through him. You laughed without artifice, and your words, they pierced the veil. Human Marcus, is it? You have triggered the bond of truth. It is not a choice. It is fate woven into our biology and law. From this moment we are linked, unless you reject it publicly." Marcus blinked, the laughter fading into confusion. "Bond? What does that mean?" "I'm just a sergeant." "I didn't mean to." She placed a finger on his lips, silencing him gently. Her touch was cool, yet it ignited a fire within him, a pull he couldn't explain. "It means you see me as I am, not as the scarred outcast my people deem me. The scars. They came from an act of mercy. 3 years ago, during a separatist raid on a neutral colony, I shielded human children from shrapnel. My guards failed. I did not, but in saving them, I marred myself. My empire values perfection above all flaws, our exile. I was demoted, shunned, now this bond. It could redeem me, or doom us both." The hall seemed to close in around them, the delicate stares like daggers. Marcus felt a surge of protectiveness mingled with an inexplicable attraction. Her vulnerability, her strength, it drew him in like gravity. Doom? Why? Because rejection requires you to claim your words were lies, manipulations. It would fracture trust between our peoples, and acceptance. It makes you my equal in the eyes of the Empire, bound by honor, and perhaps more. Her voice dropped to a whisper, her eyes locking with his, a romantic tension crackling in the air. Marcus's heart raced. He had no intention of lying. Integrity was his anchor in a chaotic galaxy. But this, it was dramatic, unforeseen, a whirlwind that could upend his life. As alarms subtly chimed, signaling a shift change, he realized the depth of the drama unfolding. Diplomats approached, concern etched on their faces. Commander Hale, his superior, pushed through the crowd, his expression thunderous. "Webb, what in the stars have you done?" Liara turned to face them, her hand slipping into Marcus's, a gesture both defiant and intimate. "He has spoken truth, Commander. The bond is sealed." The chamber buzzed with whispers, the air thick with impending storm. Marcus squeezed her hand, a silent vow forming in his mind. Whatever came next, he would face it beside her. Little did he know, this moment was the spark that would ignite a conspiracy threatening the fragile peace, drawing them into a web of danger, passion, and revelation. As the stars wheeled outside the dome, Marcus felt the first stirrings of something profound, a romance born from laughter, destined to challenge empires. The bond pulsed between them, invisible yet unbreakable, pulling their fates together in a dance of destiny. The diplomatic wing of Alizara Station had never felt so claustrophobic. Marcus walked beside Princess Liara through corridors that now seemed narrower, the iridescent walls pulsing with soft amber light as if the station itself sensed the seismic shift in its atmosphere. Her hand remained in his, not tightly clasped, but resting there with a deliberate gentleness that spoke volumes. Every few steps he felt it, a subtle thrum, like a second heartbeat, echoing inside his chest. The bond of truth was no mere metaphor. It was biological, neurological, a living connection that scientists of both species had only theorized about in hushed academic circles. Now it coursed through him, warm and insistent, linking his emotions to hers in ways he could neither predict nor control. They reached the private observation lounge reserved for high-level talks, domed chamber overlooking the swirling azure clouds of Elisara below. The room was empty, save for the low hum of environmental systems and the faint scent of ozone from the recycled air. Liara released his hand only to press a sequence into the wall panel, sealing the doors with a soft hiss. Privacy, at last. She turned to face him fully, the violet glow of her eyes dimming slightly in the softer lighting, making her appear almost vulnerable. The scars on her cheek caught the starlight filtering through the dome, silver threads against amethyst skin. Marcus found himself staring not at the marks, but at the way they framed her expression, accentuating the quiet strength in her features. "You feel it already," she said, not a question. "The pulse, it will grow stronger with proximity, with shared emotion. In time, we may even glimpse fragments of each other's thoughts if the bond deepens." Marcus rubbed the back of his neck, a nervous habit from years in the field. "I've had neural implants for combat coordination. This is different. It's like there's a current running between us. Warm, alive." He paused, searching for the right words. "I'm not afraid of it, just unprepared." Lyra's lips curved in the faintest smile, the first genuine one he had seen on her. No one is ever prepared for fate's hand reaching out. Least of all, a human soldier who laughs at a princess's deepest fear. He chuckled again, softer this time, the sound intimate in the enclosed space. "I still can't believe I laughed." In my defense, the question was so raw, so unexpected. And the answer was obvious. "You're not ugly, Lyra. You're breathtaking. Those scars don't diminish you, they prove you're real. In a galaxy full of polished illusions, that's rare." Her gaze dropped for a moment, lashes casting delicate shadows. When she looked up again, something fierce burned behind the violet. In the Kyrith court, beauty is currency. Perfection is law. When I returned from that colony raid with these marks, my own mother, the Empress, ordered my portrait removed from the Hall of Lineage. My betrothed at the time, Lord Vayer, dissolved the engagement within hours. He called me a cracked vessel unfit for the throne's reflection. I was relegated to diplomatic duty, a living reminder of what happens when duty scars the flesh. Marcus stepped closer, drawn by the bond's gentle tug and by something deeper, genuine anger on her behalf. "Then they're fools, all of them. I fought beside people who looked like they'd been through hell and back. Some lost eyes, limbs, faces. The ones who survived carried themselves with a quiet power no perfect statue could match. You shielded children, human children, knowing the cost. That's not a flaw. That's honor." The bond flared brighter between them, a sudden rush of warmth that made Lyra's breath catch. She reached up, fingertips brushing the scar nearest her eye. "I have never heard those words spoken to me. Not once, not even by my handmaidens who were trained to lie with elegance." Marcus caught her hand gently, turning it palm up in his. Her skin was cooler than human norm, smooth as silk yet faintly textured with the subtle scales that marked Kyrith physiology. "Then let me be the first to say it every day until you believe it. You're not too ugly for anyone. Certainly not for me." The words hung between them, heavy with unspoken promise. Lyra's eyes shimmered, not with tears, but with something luminous and raw. Slowly, she lifted her free hand to trace the line of his jaw, following the faint stubble, the old scar on his chin from a bar fight years ago on New Shanghai. "And you," she murmured, "are scarred in ways no one sees. Not just here," her finger brushed the mark, "but here." She pressed her palm lightly over his heart. The bond responded instantly, a shared surge of recognition. She felt the echo of his losses, friends vaporized in the Rigel campaign, the guilt of surviving when others didn't, the loneliness of command. He felt hers. Isolation in a palace of mirrors. The constant weight of being found wanting. The ache of saving lives only to be punished for it. For a long moment they stood like that, foreheads nearly touching, breathing in sync as the bond wove their pain and resilience into something new. Something beautiful. Then reality intruded. The door chime sounded sharp, insistent. Liara pulled back first, composure sliding into place like armor. "Enter," she called. Commander Halle strode in, flanked by 2 human security officers and surprisingly Lord Vayer himself, the former betrothed. Vayer's amethyst skin was flawless, his features chiseled perfection, his crimson robes immaculate. His glowing eyes flicked over their joined hands with undisguised contempt. "Princess Liara," Halle began, voice clipped. "We've received formal protest from the Kyrith delegation. They claim Sergeant Webb's response constitutes interference in internal royal matters. They demand immediate nullification of the bond." Liara's spine straightened. "The bond of truth cannot be nullified by decree, Commander. It is older than both our empires. Only mutual rejection or death severs it." Vayer stepped forward, voice smooth as venom. "Then perhaps the humans should reject it, publicly. A simple declaration that his laughter was mockery, his words falsehood. The Empire will forgive the insult for the sake of peace." Marcus felt Lyra's hand tighten in his. Through the bond came a flash of her fear, not for herself, but for him. Rejection would brand him a liar before 2 species. Acceptance would paint a target on his back. He met Vayer's gaze without flinching. "I don't lie for anyone. Not for peace treaties, not for titles, not for you. I meant every word." Vayer's lips thinned. "Then you doom her. The court will see this bond as pollution, an alien taint on royal blood. They will move to dissolve it by force, if necessary." Halle rubbed his temples. "Webb, this is bigger than you. Step back. For once in your stubborn life, think of the bigger picture." Marcus looked at Liara, her eyes held steady, trusting, yet laced with sorrow. The bond pulsed with her quiet plea. "Stay. But also, I will understand if you cannot." He turned back to the others. "The bigger picture is that 2 empires are one bad decision away from war. If my honesty can keep that from happening, if standing by her keeps the peace, then I'm in." All the way, silence fell, thick and electric. Liara's voice broke it, soft but unyielding. "Then we stand together. Let the court rage, let Vayer scheme. The bond has chosen, and so have I." Vayer's expression darkened to something dangerous. "You will regret this, scarred one. Both of you." He swept out, robes billowing like storm clouds. Halle lingered a moment longer, studying Marcus with something close to respect and worry. "You've just made yourself the most interesting man in the galaxy, Sergeant. Try not to get yourself killed." When the door sealed again, Liara turned back to Marcus. The bond thrummed stronger now, laced with gratitude, with budding affection, with the first fragile threads of something that felt dangerously like love. She stepped into his arms without hesitation. He held her close, marveling at how perfectly she fit against him, despite their differences in height and physiology. Her head rested against his shoulder, her breath warm against his neck. "Thank you," she whispered, "for seeing me, for choosing me." Marcus pressed a kiss to her temple, tentative, reverent. "I'm the one who should be thanking you. You just gave a battered soldier something worth fighting for." Outside the dome, Elisara's clouds churned in silent witness. Inside, 2 hearts beat as one, bound by truth, by courage, by a laughter that had changed everything. But in the shadows of the station, messages were already flying, coded transmissions to the Kyrith homeworld, to human Black Ops channels. The bond was no longer a private miracle. It was a spark in a powder keg. And the storm was only beginning. The private transport shuttle detached from Elisara Station with a gentle shudder, sliding into the velvet dark between stars. Inside the compact cabin, lit only by the soft blue glow of instrument panels and the distant shimmer of nebulae through the viewport, Marcus and Liara sat side by side on the curved bench. The bond thrummed steadily now, a comforting rhythm that had settled into their breathing, their pulses, even the subtle rise and fall of their thoughts. Neither spoke for the first hour. Words felt inadequate against the enormity of what lay ahead. They were bound for Kareth Prime not as honored guests, but as summoned parties. The Imperial Court had issued an edict within minutes of Vayr's departure from the station. Princess Liara and her human contaminant were to present themselves before the Mirror Throne within 70 standard hours. Failure would be interpreted as treason against the bloodline. Acceptance of the bond without imperial ratification was in the eyes of tradition an abomination. Liara broke the silence first. They will try to break us before we even reach the throne room. Vayr has allies in the High Conciliator's old blood, who still remember when humans were nothing but vermin on backwater colonies. They will demand proof that the bond is not some trick, some biochemical weapon you carried unknowingly. Marcus turned to her, studying the way starlight traced silver along her scars. Then we give them proof. I'm not hiding anything. They can scan me, probe me, run whatever tests they want. The bond is real. You feel it, I feel it. Let them see. She reached for his hand again, interlacing their fingers. The contact sent a ripple through the bond. Warmth, reassurance, and beneath it, a current of fear she tried to shield from him. He felt it anyway. You do not understand the mirror right, she said quietly. It is not merely a ceremony. It is judgment by reflection. Every courtier, every noble, every conciliator will gaze into the great obsidian mirrors that line the throne chamber. The mirrors do not lie, they amplify truth, strip away illusion. If the bond is deemed impure, the mirrors will show it. Fractured images, discordant colors, echoes of rejection. If it is pure, they will show harmony. But purity, in their eyes, means conformity. A human soul bound to a Kareth royal? They will see only pollution. Marcus lifted her hand to his lips, pressing a soft kiss to her knuckles. The gesture was instinctive, tender, and it drew a small, surprised inhale from her. Then let them see pollution. Let them see two people who found something real in the middle of a cold diplomatic hall. I'm not asking to be emperor. I'm not asking for their approval. I'm asking to stand beside you because walking away would be the only thing that feels like betrayal now. Her eyes shimmered, violet deepening to amethyst flame. You speak as though love were simple, isn't it? He countered gently. At its core, I look at you, and I see someone brave enough to save strangers at the cost of everything she was taught to value. Someone who still carries hope despite being cast aside. Someone whose laugh I want to hear again, not the polite one you use for diplomats, but the real one, the one you probably haven't let out since you were a child. Lyra's composure cracked, just a fraction. She leaned forward until their foreheads touched. And I see a man who laughs at fear instead of bowing to it. A man who carries ghosts in his eyes yet still chooses kindness. A man who could have walked away from this madness and chose, instead, to walk into it with me. The bond surged bright, almost painful in its intensity. Images flickered between them, fleeting, unbidden. Marcus saw her as a girl, running through crystal gardens under twin moons, laughing until she collapsed in the grass. Liara saw him on Rigel 4, kneeling in ash beside a fallen squadmate, whispering apologies to the stars. They pulled back simultaneously, breathless. Did you? Marcus began. Yes, she whispered. The bond is deepening faster than it should. We are sharing memory fragments already. He swallowed. Then they'll see that too, won't they? In the mirrors, they will. And they will use it against us. The rest of the journey passed in quiet intimacy. They spoke of small things' favorite foods. Hers, starbloom nectar chilled at dawn. His street tacos from a vendor on New Shanghai who always added too much chili, childhood dreams, fears they had never voiced aloud. Each confession tightened the invisible thread between them until it felt like a living thing, warm and pulsing, wrapping them closer with every shared truth. When the shuttle dropped out of hyperspace above Kareth Prime, the sight stole Marcus's breath. The planet was a masterpiece of engineered perfection. Continents sculpted into geometric elegance. Oceans dyed shades of sapphire and amethyst to match the royal palette. Cities that rose in spiraling towers of living crystal. No smog, no scars of industry, only flawless symmetry under a violet sky. Their shuttle was met by an honor guard of silent, stone-faced sentinels in obsidian armor. No greetings, no courtesies. They were escorted directly to the Palace of Eternal Reflection, a structure so vast it seemed to bend light around itself. Inside, the halls echoed with the soft chime of crystal underfoot and the murmur of unseen courtiers. They were given separate chambers to prepare. Protocol demanded it, though the separation caused the bond to ache like a fresh wound. Marcus endured the ministrations of human embassy aides who had been rushed in ahead of them. A crisp dress uniform, metals polished, hair trimmed. He refused the offered neural dampeners that would mute emotional bleed-through during the rite. "I want them to feel everything," he told the nervous attach. "No filters." Liara emerged from her chambers, transformed yet achingly herself. Her gown was midnight silk threaded with starlight filaments, cut to reveal the scars on her cheek and shoulder in deliberate defiance. No cosmetics hid them. Instead, they had been traced with faint silver dust that caught every light. She looked like a fallen star, beautiful, dangerous, unapologetic. When their eyes met in the antechamber, the bond sang. "You're stunning," Marcus said, voice rough. "And you," she replied, stepping close enough that he could feel her warmth. "Look like a man ready to fight gods." They walked into the mirror throne chamber together. The room was immense, circular, walled entirely in seamless obsidian that reflected not just images but essences. Thousands of nobles stood in ranked tiers, their flawless faces masks of disapproval. At the center rose the mirror throne, 2 seats of black crystal, empty, waiting. Above them hung the great oculus, a lens that would project their bond for all to witness. Empress Thalira sat to one side on her own elevated throne, features so perfectly symmetrical they seemed carved from ice. Beside her stood Lord Vayer, eyes glittering with anticipation. The Conciliator Prime stepped forward, voice amplified by the chamber's acoustics. "Princess Liara of the Blood Eternal. Human Marcus Webb, you stand accused of corrupting the royal lineage through an unsanctioned bond of truth. The mirror throne will judge. Step forward." They did, hand in hand. As they reached the twin seats, the oculus flared to life. Light poured down, bathing them in silver. The mirrors around the chamber rippled, and then the visions began. First came memories, hers. The colony raid, children screaming, her body shielding them as shrapnel tore through armor and flesh. His burning dropships, friends dying in his arms, the moment he decided survival was not enough if it meant abandoning honor. The court gasped, some recoiled. Others leaned closer, fascinated despite themselves. Then came the present, laughter in the Hall of Convergence, the first touch, the shared heartbeat on the shuttle, the kiss that had not yet happened, but already lived in both their minds. The bond glowed brighter, threads of gold and violet weaving between them, visible to all. Vayer's voice cut through the murmurs. "See? Alien contamination. Human emotion is crude, chaotic. It will erode her perfection." But the mirrors did not fracture. Instead, they harmonized. The scars on Lyra's face shimmered, not as flaws, but as points of radiant light. Marcus's own scars, physical and invisible, became constellations of resilience. Their reflections merged, 2 silhouettes becoming one silhouette edged in starfire. The court fell silent. Empress Thalira rose slowly. Her voice, when it came, carried no warmth, only calculation. "The mirrors do not lie. The bond is true. Yet tradition demands purity of lineage. Therefore, I offer judgment. The human may remain bound to my daughter. If he proves worthy in the trial of ascension." Marcus felt Lyra's hand tighten convulsively. The trial of ascension. A ritual so ancient, so brutal, that no outsider had ever survived it. Liara turned to him, eyes wide with horror and fierce protectiveness. "Marcus, no. You cannot. He lifted her hand to his chest, over his racing heart. "I already chose you," he said softly. "Whatever the trial is, I'll face it. For us." The bond flared one final time, love, fear, determination crashing together like waves. Above them, the oculus burned brighter than any star. And somewhere in the shadows of the court, unseen hands tightened on hidden weapons. The real storm had only just begun. The trial of ascension began at the first light of Kyrith Prime's violet dawn. No grand announcement, no cheering crowds, only the cold precision of ritual. Marcus was led alone to the obsidian crucible, a vast amphitheater carved deep into the living crystal of the planet's core. The walls were black mirrors, but these did not reflect light. They drank it, turning every flicker into infinite darkness until only the participant remained illuminated. Liara had been forbidden to accompany him. Tradition demanded isolation, yet the bond refused to be severed by distance. Even now, as he stood at the edge of the circular platform suspended over an abyss that fell thousands of kilometers to molten heart rock, he felt her sharp, frantic worry threading through his veins like liquid starfire. He sent back calm, steady pulses. "I'm here. I'm not leaving you." The Conciliator Prime's voice echoed from unseen speakers. "Human Marcus Webb, to ascend is to prove your soul worthy of union with the royal blood. 3 trials await: courage, sacrifice, truth. Fail any, and the bond shatters. Succeed, and you may claim the second throne beside Princess Liara. Fail fatally, and your essence returns to the void. No time for questions." The platform trembled. First came courage. The mirrors ignited. From every surface erupted simulacra-perfect duplicates of every enemy Marcus had ever faced. Rigel 4 plasma marines, their armor scorched and venting atmosphere. Shadow-cloaked assassins from the outer veil, even the faceless. Bureaucrats who had once denied him leave to attend his sister's funeral. They advanced in silent, relentless waves. Marcus had no weapon. The trial stripped him bare, only the uniform on his back, boots, and will. He met the first Marine with a sidestep and a brutal elbow to the throat plate. The simulacrum shattered into obsidian dust. Another lunged. Marcus caught its wrist, twisted, used momentum to hurl it into 3 more. They dissolved on impact. He fought not with rage, but with economy, every move honed by years of survival. Sweat stung his eyes. His scarred arm burned from old plasma damage. Yet each time a duplicate fell, he felt Lyra's pride flare through the bond, bright and fierce, fueling him. The final simulacrum was himself, younger, unbroken, eyes still soft with hope he had long since buried. It spoke in his own voice. "You should have died on Rigel. You're a ghost wearing a man's skin." "She deserves better." Marcus stared into those familiar eyes. "Maybe. But I'm the one who's here now. And I'm not running." He stepped forward and embraced the apparition. It crumbled into glittering dust that drifted upward like fireflies. The mirrors dimmed. Courage passed. Second trial, sacrifice. A single pedestal rose from the platform center. Upon it lay a crystalline orb pulsing with soft violet light, the literal heart of the bond itself, distilled into physical form. Beside it rested a ceremonial blade of pure obsidian. The Conciliator's voice returned. "To prove you do not bind her for power or vanity, you must sever the bond. Cut the heart. She will be free. You will live scarred, alone, but alive. Refuse, and the trial claims your life instead." Marcus's hand hovered over the blade. Through the bond came Lyra's silent scream, no words. Only raw terror and love so fierce it nearly buckled his knees. He lifted the blade. Then he turned it not toward the orb, but toward his own chest. "I won't cut her free," he said aloud, voice steady despite the tremor in his hands. "Because she's already free. She chose me. I choose her. If the price is my life to keep that choice intact, then take it." He pressed the point against his sternum, just enough to draw a thin line of blood. The orb flared blindingly. The blade dissolved into ash. The platform shook as though the planet itself exhaled in astonishment. Sacrifice passed not by severing, but by refusing to let fear dictate love. Third trial, truth. The mirrors opened fully now, no longer reflecting the chamber, but projecting every hidden corner of Marcus's soul for the unseen court to witness. Every doubt, every regret, every moment he had wanted to walk away from the bond because it terrified him, every selfish impulse, every tender hope he had never dared name aloud. And then Liara. She appeared in the mirrors, not as memory, but as living projection. She stood beside him on the platform, gown flowing, scars gleaming like silver constellations. The court could see her too. Gasps rippled through the distant throne room where they watched. She reached for him. Their fingers met, and the bond became visible to all, a lattice of gold and violet light weaving between their hearts, pulsing in perfect synchrony. Marcus spoke, voice carrying to every mirror, every watcher. I laughed because the idea that anyone could look at her and see ugliness was absurd. I stayed because she looked at me, a tired, scarred soldier, and saw something worth keeping. I love her not despite her scars, but because they are proof she is more than perfection. She is real. And in a galaxy that tries to polish everything into lifeless beauty, real is the rarest thing there is. He turned to her projection. Liara, I would choose you 1,000 times, in every life. In every trial. Tears glimmered on her cheeks in the mirror. She stepped closer, placed her hand over his heart. And I choose you, she said, voice trembling with wonder. Not as savior, not as redemption, as my equal, my heart, my home. The lattice of light between them ignited into blinding radiance. The mirrors could no longer contain it. Cracks spider-webbed across obsidian, then shattered outward in a cascade of harmless stardust. Silence. Then, from the distant throne room, a single sound, Empress Thalira rising from her seat. When she spoke, her voice carried no ice, only something perilously close to awe. The trials are complete. The bond is not impurity. It is evolution. She descended the steps of the mirror throne, stopping before the twin seats. One remained empty. Princess Liara, Consort Marcus Webb, approach. They walked together now, hand in hand through corridors that parted before them like water. Courtiers who once sneered now bowed. Vare stood at the edge of the crowd, face pale, expression unreadable. He said nothing. There was nothing left to say. At the throne, Thalira placed a circlet of woven starlight upon Lyra's brow, then turned to Marcus. Instead of a crown, she laid a simple band of black crystal around his wrist, the same material as the mirrors. A reminder, she said quietly. That truth reflects, even when it shatters illusion. Liara took Marcus's hand and guided him to the second throne. They sat together. The oculus above flared one final time, projecting their joined silhouettes across the sky of Kyrith Prime, visible from every city, every crystal spire. A new constellation. Two figures, scarred and whole, bound by light. Later, much later, when the ceremonies ended and the court dispersed, they slipped away to the palace gardens. Under twin moons, among starbloom vines that glowed softly, they stood alone. Liara traced the new band on his wrist. You could have walked away at any moment. I could have, he admitted. But then I wouldn't be here, holding you under alien moons, feeling like the luckiest bastard in two empires. She laughed, real, unguarded laughter, bright and clear. The sound made his chest ache with joy. He pulled her close, forehead to forehead. Am I still too human for you, princess? She smiled against his lips. You are exactly enough. Their first real kiss happened there, slow, deep, tasting of starlight and promise. The bond sang, no longer a fragile thread, but a permanent harmony woven into their very beings. Years would pass. Peace treaties would strengthen, not from politics alone, but from the quiet power of two souls who had chosen each other against every odd. Children would come, hybrids of human and Kyrith, bearing faint scars and bright eyes, proof that perfection was never the goal, connection was. But that night, under moons that had watched empires rise and fall, none of that mattered yet. There was only them. Marcus whispered against her hair. I love you, Liara, she answered, voice soft as dawn. And I love you, Marcus. Beyond mirrors, beyond thrones, beyond anything they ever taught us to want, the stars above wheeled in silent approval. And somewhere, in the vastness between galaxies, laughter echoed, one human laugh that had started it all, now joined by another, forever entwined.
Diría por ahí un amigo, mira ese tonto, ¿por qué se mete? Mira ese. Y sin direccionales. ¿Pero se mamó en qué? En enviarte la Mac, güey, la foto. ¿Por qué no te envía la real? Blue.